Hello, Bookworms of Concord, Hallowed Autistic here, an autistic pastor in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod who I use my platform to educate people on Lutheranism, autism, and I also do book reviews because I love books. It's 1:21 a.m. and I just finished my very first book of 2025, although I started the book in December, but anyway, the book is The Outsider by Stephen King. As you can see, it's quite thick, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. The book is about an 11-year-old boy who is brutally murdered, and his body is found just brutally violated, and all the forensic evidence points to Flint City, Oklahoma's beloved Little League coach, Terry Maitland. And it's a slam dunk case, but the only thing is Terry has an incontrovertible alibi. And it's obvious that he can't be in two places at once. So how can the forensics and eyewitnesses all point to him when he clearly could not have been there to commit such an unthinkable, vile act? Is Terry really just that clever, or is someone else responsible? Unfortunately, part of the ending was spoiled for me when I read its sequel in this anthology called If It Bleeds. It's a collection of short stories by Stephen King, and the short story in particular that's the sequel to The Outsider actually has the same title as the anthology. So I had read that first, not knowing that it was a sequel to one of Stephen King's novels. And that's obviously how I found out about this. And it's, but despite all of that, despite having part of it spoiled, and the only thing that really was spoiled is knowing who the actual murderer is. But despite all that, I still really enjoyed this book. And there were still a lot of things I didn't know. So it was still worth it. But I still kind of wish that I didn't know who the actual murderer is, so that I could have, had the ignorance of it, going through the mystery with the characters. That being said, this is not your typical horror story. I think, at least by Stephen King. It's one of his more recent ones, was published in 2018. The reason why I say it's not one of his more typical ones is that more than the others that I've read, my cat is running around. She's got the zoomies. Anyway, Stephen King, he really tugs at your heartstrings as you read about the grief of the victim's surviving family, which, from the ones I've read by Stephen King so far, don't really do that. And that's okay. You don't have to. He doesn't have to do that in every single book he writes. But the nature of the crimes are horrible by themselves, but the horror of the family's grief was so heart-wrenching that I had to put the book down a couple times and just grieve with them. I can't really think of another book where I've done that. Stephen King, he's not just a master storyteller, but he also masterfully illustrates the family's grief, and the characters he writes actually talk like real people. I don't know if you ever experienced that. You read a book and the way that people talk, it's like people don't talk like that, or it's so contrived that it's just not believable. but I don't know, the way he writes the dialogue of these the characters is just extremely believable, and it feels like you are reading about real people, even though it's clearly fiction. And the other thing I'll say about this book is that, although it's a blend of genres, really, I think mainly two genres, being horror and mystery. And Stephen King obviously has become very famous through his penchant for horror, and I think this book, I think, is so good with the mystery elements that I think Stephen King should consider writing more mystery novels. Maybe not just horror blended with mystery, but purely mystery. For a long time, I've been a James Patterson fan, and I recently started reading his books again. But I think I don't like James Patterson anymore because of just how detailed this was, and that's the thing I said I was going to get to earlier in the video. But I know it's thick because Stephen King, he really it's one of his things that he does. He really builds the characters. He really gets you to know them, and a lot of people don't like that. And I can understand why. Some people might prefer a much quicker read like James Patterson, where there's not a whole lot of detail or character development. But I love it, and I read like several James Patterson books in a row, and then moved on to this one, and it's like I don't know. After reading this, I feel like I just can't read James Patterson anymore, because. Not because his books aren't good, but because I really like just diving right into the world, and really getting to know all the characters, their strengths and their flaws, even their history and their motivations and so forth. You don't really get that with James Patterson. But anyway, that's why I think Stephen King should start writing. Maybe he has, I don't know. I only started reading Stephen King, I think, last year. Last year is 2024 now. So 2023, I think, is when I started reading Stephen King for the first time. So maybe he has written mystery that I just don't know about, and maybe others that are a blend of mystery and horror. Either way, if Stephen King has anything that is whether it's a blend of horror and mystery or just mystery, I think I'm going to pick it up and read it. So I give this book 5 stars out of 5. If any of that sounds interesting to you to read, then I suggest you do so. So yeah, there you go. Thanks. Bye.